And that is because, although he campaigned as a moderate, he campaigned as a Democrat who was more conservative than most and a free trader and so forth. And the first thing he did when he came in was gays in the military. And the American people turned to one another and they said, uh-oh, the Republicans were right. This guy's a liberal. And he no longer had any credibility with the American people. That's why so many of his other initiatives failed. And the real danger here for Obama is that he will be perceived the same way, in which case we will have 4 years of lack of leadership. And this is not a time when we should be having a lack of leadership.
All right, the time we've got left with you, we're talking to the former White House counsel, chief counsel to President Reagan, also head counsel to the Treasury Department separately with the American Enterprise Institute, Peter J. Wallison. And he's written quite a few books. The latest one, Competitive Equity, A Better Way to Organize Mutual Funds, put out by AEI Press. Sir?
I also wrote a book about Reagan. It's on that list, but
absolutely.
If your listeners are interested in that, they should be able to find that on Amazon.
Absolutely. Now, specifically with the bailout, you've been criticizing the way some of it's being carried out.
Yeah. Well, I am of the view that the only way we're going to be able to get the banks to start lending again is if the banks have more confidence in their own capital, in their own assets. And right now they don't and they can't because their assets are largely mortgages, mortgage-backed securities that are bad quality and whole mortgages of various kinds. Now, when that is true, and the housing market is continuing to fall, then these mortgages begin to default. And when they default, the banks have much less value there. As a result, they all are hoarding as much in the way of dollars as they can, so that if their depositors or their counterparties come in and ask for their money, the banks can pay them off. Otherwise, they're afraid they will be closed and default. So the only way, I think, to get the banks to start lending is to buy those bad assets off their balance sheets and hold them in a bad bank or hold them in some other kind of account and substitute cash for those assets. In that case, the banks will be much healthier. Mm-hmm. They will look healthier to depositors and counterparties. They will feel comfortable beginning to lend money. But that's the solution to our problems on the one side.
Okay, well, we've got a break. We've got 5 more minutes with you after the break when we come back, and I want you to get into, on the other side, what's really happening instead of what you're saying should happen. And I want to ask you when we come back, what's going on here? They talk about trillions of dollars, not $850 billion, and the Federal Reserve gets up before Congress and says, we're not going to say where it is because the banks are being completely secretive because they're in such serious financial disarray. So we'll get your expert opinion, former chief counsel to the Treasury and to Ronald Reagan, when we come back on the other side. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Steve Shank. eFoods does it again. The 3-Day Responder provides one adult with 3 days worth of healthy, delicious, easy fix food. The price of the 3-Day Responder is almost ridiculous at $21.95. for actually 12 meals plus snacks. When you taste the food in the 3-Day Responder, you will understand why families trust eFoods Direct to provide healthy, delicious food for every need. Whether you're hunting, playing, or responding to an emergency, the food in the 3-Day Responder is easy to fix and ready to go. Food is an everyday need. The 3-Day Responder is for the time when food should be the last thing you have to worry about. The 3-Day Responder, $21.95. Sometimes the best things do come in the smallest packages. Call 800-409-5633. On the web, efoodsdirect.com. That's 800-409-5633. On the web, efoodsdirect.com.
On September 11th, 2001, along with hundreds of my fellow troops, I went to Ground Zero, and we knew what to do. Or at least we thought we did.
Truth Rising is a breakthrough 9/11 film that finally gives first responders a platform to tell their story.
Whitman, EPA director, on the 18th made a statement that the air was safe to breathe.
This film follows the growing momentum of 9/11 truth as brave souls throughout the world take action against their global masters.
He had his hand over the radio while he was getting a countdown. He takes his hand off and you hear 3, 2, 1, and it was boom, 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 boom.
This is an emergency transmission worldwide. Download Truth Rising at prisonplanet.tv and aggressively spread it worldwide, or order the DVD at Infowars.com. If we don't expose the government-sponsored terror, they're going to commit more acts and bring in martial law.
As many people know, ever since President Nixon took us off the gold standard, the U.S. dollar has been devaluating. What people don't know, however, is how this directly affects your personal finances. Is there a way to prevent your portfolios from losing value? The answer to all of this is gold and silver. They have both maintained their purchasing power for 6,000 years. If you had had $100,000 in cash and $100,000 in gold and silver back in 1913 and kept them both until now, your cash would actually have the buying power of only $4,800, but your gold and silver would have the buying power of $3 million. The answer to protecting your assets is simple. Call me, John Ballman, today at 1-800-686-2237, extension 169. Get all your questions answered before your money is worth zero. Call 1-800-686-2237, extension 169. Take action today while we still accept paper dollars for gold. That's 1-800-686-2237, extension 169.
SouthSummit.com is the place for top name brand knives such as Kershaw, Spyderco, Cold Steel, Gerber, K-Bar, Boker, Leatherman, and more. South Summit has one of the largest selections of self-defense products on the web. Knives, stun guns, police batons, pepper spray, LED flashlights, emergency kits, binoculars, and tactical gear are just some of the great products found on SouthSummit.com. Receive discounted prices on camping and preparedness products from Camelback, Kelty, and Eureka. Check out our water storage barrels, water purification systems, and Mountain House freeze-dried foods that have a 30-year shelf life. Keep an eye on your family and keep them safe with our do-it-yourself spy camera systems. Mention that you heard this ad on the radio and you'll receive a free LED flashlight with your order. Visit SouthSummit.com. That's South Summit, S-U-M-M-I-T, SouthSummit.com. Or call toll-free 1-800-234-8654. That's 1-800-234-8654.
Waging war on corruption. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Peter J. Wallison is our guest. We got about 5 minutes left with him, and I'm going to get into a bunch of news, your phone calls, and a lot more in the last 30 minutes of the show today. Mr. Wallison, okay, so you're saying buy the assets to get the banks going again. Instead, they just give them money, and then we're told no one can know where it's going or what they're doing with it. And then Obama makes a thing about executive compensation and criticizes the bailout as if he wasn't the guy that helped ram it through. So what's really happening right now?
Well, I think the Obama administration is following exactly the wrong policy in trying to limit compensation. I understand why they're doing it. Yes, people are angry because these people are paid so much, but if you want the banks to be able to function, you cannot punish the people who are now in charge of them. The people who are now in charge of them are not the people who caused them all this trouble. They're not the people who lost all this money. They're new people who have come along to try to help out. And if you're going to cut their salaries when they're working 20 hours a day and having to leave their families for long periods of time, it's not going to attract many good people to those institutions, and we need good people there now.
Well, sir, I'm not trying to be partisan because I'm not. I'm a libertarian Ron Paul guy. My issue here is that, and you can blame Bush a lot for this, it goes all the way back, but more than that, it really was the Clintons who changed a lot of these rules and who allowed a lot of this stuff to happen, and then they run around, then pointing their finger. But that's a side issue. While we have you here, you were White House counsel to Ronald Reagan, so I know you saw a lot of what went across his desk and what happened. And I have the congressional testimony about Rex 84 and things like that. That's all been, mainly secret. Now they're openly announcing things like this with bills for FEMA camps to relocate Americans during collapse of society, continuity of government. It appears the federal government thinks we're going to go into a depression and is gearing up for collapse.
Well, I don't know anything about any of those things. Maybe they are happening, but I haven't seen anything like that. And it is actually, though, possible that we could have a depression. That's why the government is acting in such extraordinary ways. Why the Federal Reserve is doing so much. Why the Treasury Department is spending so much, trying to avoid the possibility of a recession. Because in the 30s, the diagnosis has been that the reason we had this depression in the 30s was that the Federal Reserve did not act. And the government did not act satisfactorily to keep the economy from declining and keeping deflation from occurring. So I think what they're doing is necessary, and I'm a conservative. But I